this webinar. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time today. So my name is Eloise, and I'm a member of the Association Women in Web3 Switzerland, which is the association under which we're doing this webinar today. And I have a background in cultural management, which I'm trying now to bridge with my interest in Web3. And I work as a freelancer, and I wanted to help onboard many museum professionals into all the opportunities that there is in Web3. So there is no prior knowledge needed for this conversation. We'll try to keep it as accessible to all as possible. And you're in for a treat because we have wonderful panelists.
All right, thank you. I've got a question just for you after, but I'm going to also let the audience know that they can ask Q&As whenever they want. And all you need to do, people, is to write down your question at the bottom of your screen in the center. There's a Q&A box, and we will read them out as we go. You were talking earlier about some credits that people can earn if they want to in order to use and abuse the panelists at the end of the show.
Exactly. Thank you. So just to bring this now, we really encourage you to stay for the full 2 hours because in the last 15 minutes of the webinar, I will be sharing my screen when I get the authorization to do that, because I'm not a co-host yet, but hopefully soon. And so I will share my screen in the last 15 minutes to let you scan with your phone a QR code that will help you mint your first NFT. So mint is a word that we say to create your first NFT in the Web3 language. So mint/create your first NFT. And it's an NFT that will simply prove as a certificate that you've attended today's session live. And after that, for those who have minted/created their NFT, there will be an option for the first few people to reach out to me, the ability to get a free 20-minute call with one of the speakers today. I will re-explain that at the end of the webinar, but stay until the end.
That's a fantastic goodie, Eloise. Thank you very much. I should say that the session is recorded and being also streamed live on YouTube on the WiseKey channel. So for those who wish to record it, it's possible. Now, without further ado, I'll turn to our lovely panelists. I'll start with you, Diane, if you don't mind. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what and what you're doing today, and what you're trying to achieve?
Sure, with pleasure. Thank you, 16. And thank you so much, Women in Web3 Switzerland. Thank you, Eloise, because you've been really making this happen from the start. So I'm Diane Drubet. I'm the founder of We Are Museums. Shall we share our slides now or a little bit after?
That's up to you, however
okay.
you feel comfortable.
I can start then. So yeah, and so We Are Museums is currently running laboratory research on Web3 for museums called WAC Lab, a catalyst for transformation. WAC means means Web3 for the art and culture, WAC. But before diving into WAC, I would like to give a little bit of context and explain quickly what We Are Museums mean. It's this major community of museum professionals running different laboratory research on different topics in order to accelerate innovation adoption, might it be social, environmental, or technological adoption. We've been guiding museums through change and innovation for more than a decade. This is one of our events organized in Katowice in the south of Poland back in 2019. And we've been organizing multiple events, might it be online, on-site, small, local, international, for big audience. What we tend to do is to gather people to share knowledge. The more we could. So the last big laboratory we've been working on is WAC, the one I just described. And we are really here to turn the art world into Web3 champion. It's an innovation laboratory. So laboratory because we research we documentate, but we also innovate and we build. We train and educate. So it's a lot of different things organized in a 9 months program. I wanted to share this with you. It's our recipe to unlock innovation adoption, because when we talk about museums, innovation is not always the easiest path, the easiest journey to take. And we've been testing innovation adoption in the museum scene for more than a decade. We've been having a big laboratory around the ecological transition for museums called Museums Facing Extinction for 3 years. And this methodology has been really proved and tested multiple times since then. So basically, we start by researching, harvesting. It's a little bit what Eloise is doing today, trying to gather different experts on one topic, but also letting them express their own thoughts to better understand what might be different solutions, but also challenges. Then we cross-pollinate, so that's definitely through such webinars, but also through collective intelligence workshop, spanning around among different countries and different multiple months. And then we gather all this knowledge and we teach. We basically share the resources as much as we can. So it's all about educating, training, mentoring, coaching. And then once we all have a sense of, the same language, a sense of what the technology can be about, or what the social innovation or environmental innovation could bring to museum, then we produce something. Might it be something that we produce together, so multiple museums working together, or might it be different teams within a museum producing something together. And then we document and we assess and we evaluate. It's very important to organize a sense-making session at the end of this multi-month program to understand what has been done and to share and to produce even more resources. So we basically translated this methodology for around the topic of Web3 for museums. And this is leading us to 4 different components. So we organize weekly discussions, and we are organizing this actually since November 2021. WAC is running since 21, so it's been a few years already. We have the WAC resources, really gathering also different content and resources in online hub, but also in different handbooks. Then we have training program for museums. This season, we have only 6 weeks, but it's already quite a lot. And then we have a factory where we basically incubate museum teams so they can produce a new project. This year, we are really focusing on blockchain technology. But the main goal, I have to say, it's really to identify new use cases. So, of course, we kept talking about NFTs, but NFTs back in 2021, it was all about digital art. Then slowly people are starting to understand that we can do something with these NFTs, exactly like Linda will tell us about. We can really use these tokens to distribute some value, but we can also use them to distribute some benefits or to create some membership programs or to share governance or curation. So the goal here is really to identify how we can use blockchain technology and go further, even far away from these big NFT words and the different practices that people had in 2021. So we've been producing and helping to produce different projects already within museums. As I said, WAC exists since 2021. So, for instance, we organized with the foundation LAS Art Foundation, based in Berlin. We organized a live minting experience in the Yansheng exhibition in Berka in Halle. So live minting, what does that mean? It's basically audience participation, audience engagement, which is on site. We are basically asking, so I can maybe explain you what we did with this artist and with this museum, and you will see it's not so alien, it's not so different from what you already do in your museums, probably, except that we add the blockchain component to it. But basically, visitors had to enter the name and birth date on a tablet, on an iPad, totally at the beginning of the exhibition. And then they were receiving a small paper bracelet with something like a prediction coming from an oracle. So it was all integrated in the artistic practice and concept of Yansheng. And then step by step, they are following the exhibition. And at the end, they can really activate the oracle, which will generate live in front of the eye of the visitor, which will generate a card, just like a tarot card, or with a really bespoke, personalized prediction, which is actually using the name, but also the birth date of the visitor. And then this really unique tarot card, you can see it being displayed on this big screen, but it's also something that you want to collect because it's yours, because it's a proof of your visit, because it's really dedicated to, it was made for you and no one else. So how do you want to collect something so intangible? Well, we are using blockchain technology to do so. Basically, people have to create what we call a wallet, but it's, a space on the blockchains where you can store your assets. And in this wallet, we will leave or we will drop this NFT or this tarot card. So you can keep it. So it's yours, it's safe, it's authentified because it's really yours with your name on it even. And it's there is a timestamp of when it was created. So that's one example that we delved on during season 1. And this is something that we called live minting, but it can be called on-site visitor-led creation. It's basically visitor participation.
Diane, I have a question that pops up in mind now. Were these cards free as part of the ticket to the exhibition? Okay.
It was totally free, and the exhibition lasted 2 months, and we had more than 4,500 cards or NFTs being minted or being collected and created by the visitors.
That's fantastic. And how old were the people on average who actually did mint?
We don't have the numbers, but the LAS Art Foundation visitor, the typical visitor is around 30. It's quite young, actually. It's a highly it's a very immersive and highly tech-led art space, art foundation, I would say. And especially this artist, he was using Unreal Engine to create his own artwork. So everyone which was, a little bit contemporary art and tech savvy came run into this exhibition, I would say. I will go to the next slide and pick one of the example of season 2. So talking about the digital souvenir, it's something that the Musée d'Orsay did for the Van Gogh exhibition, which actually just ended. You can see on the picture, people could collect 2 different things. It's basically digital assets or visuals. One was just a picture, one was a 3D object. But what was really interesting for visitors and also for the museum team was that you could attach some benefits. So it's basically the 3.0 version of a membership program. And actually, not the one on the picture, but the other one, which was way more expensive, got sold the most, because you could have access if you win, you have access to the Musée d'Orsay for life. So people, went crazy about that. But it's like, membership program. Then, for instance, we also had something done with the Royal College of Art. This was really interesting project, generating newspaper covers, but then actually visitors could enter everything that they wanted to add on this newspaper cover. It was all about future thinking and future scenario, thinking about the climate and the planet. So it was, pure co-creation and pure collective intelligence. And then it was transformed into generative art. Maybe one last point. So you have a few listed here. You can check it out after. But one point which is, to my mind, one of the most inspiring is the Institute for Sound and Music, talking about perpetual donation. But I'm actually thinking maybe I'm saying too much. And maybe that's something that we will talk about after.
It's up to you. One point that I'll make is, from all these different study cases that you're showing us, is that it's really global. Huh? We've had Germany, England, Switzerland, Australia. So that's another interesting point that we'll cover up later. But you're right.
Totally.
We'll move on to Linda for now. Just hold that thought,
Diane. I will. I really want to talk about this project, but it will come later.
Okay. So Linda, welcome. Thank you for your time. I know it's late for you because you're closer to Australia than we are. You're in Bali. And so tell us a little bit, what are you doing in Bali, and what is your, I saw as well that you spent a lot of time in Dubai. So what made you move east?
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Eloise, for bringing us all together, and having this really exciting conversation. And, very happy to share a little bit about the work that we've been doing at Quantum Tempo, especially here in Indonesia, as you just mentioned, 16. So maybe a little bit about myself as I also start to share my screen. I'm originally from Italy, from Rome, but definitely had the travel bug since my young age. And, I had the pleasure to travel to many countries around the world. As my background is in political economy. I don't come from, the traditional, arts and culture world, but culture has been definitely a huge driver for my travels. And in my background as political economist, I've been able to live in a lot of emerging markets across Southeast Asia, Latin America, and also the Middle East. So in my most recent role, I was actually at the Dubai Future Foundation, which is a government entity of the Dubai government, which was established actually as the Museum of the Future Foundation initially, that I think a lot of you guys, might have heard with the launch of the museum in 2022. But myself and my role was most focusing on public policy and technology policy as the Dubai government started to really build, a tech ecosystem that was really focused on developing the future and making it happen in UAE. And as part of that process, I was actually introduced to blockchain when we endeavored to place actually 100% of government services of Dubai on the blockchain, which actually happened. So that was my first introduction. And I think it was an important one because it actually opened up my perspective towards this technology, not from the NFT digital art use case, but rather from a public policy standpoint and rather like an initiative that was going to unlock public value for the government and, of course, the residents and the citizens of the UAE. Fast forward, during the pandemic, I took some time off and I found myself in the island of Bali in Indonesia. And I saw firsthand, after having traveled, here to Indonesia for many years, how the absence of tourism, definitely took a toll on the local economy of the island, where 70% of the income comes from tourism. And also within that process, really spending a lot of time with the local communities that also, practice cultural heritage. For anyone that has been here, I think Bali strives as one of those few destinations in which living culture is still pretty much alive. And, we spend a lot of time like actually engaging and listening from the community what was like, and obviously, the livelihoods were dramatically affected. And that was an entry point to actually understand how dramatically underfunded, underinvested, and under-digitized the culture and creative sector is, which is when we decided to really, to launch Quantum Tempo as a digital platform focused on driving regenerative travel and cultural preservation using blockchain technology and also community empowerment. So we'll be sharing a little bit of some of the examples that are most relevant for museums, teams and digital departments, and some of the contingent case studies that we've been pioneering in the space. So maybe here, just as a brief summary, unfortunately, tourism is an important funding mechanism for culture and creative sector, but it's a very small one, because there's a lot of value capturing that happens within the value chain of travel. And even UNWTO tells us that every $100 that are spent on a tour holiday, only 5 actually stay in that country when the country is a developing country. So these are where kind of the economics that we really wanted to change, to redirect a significant portion of the tourism spend towards cultural preservation and also cultural transmission to local communities that especially such as in the island of Bali, culture and traditions are very much alive. So fast forward, I think one important thing is that especially in the younger audiences, there is a strive to actually experience culture in a more authentic way, and in a way that guarantees that there's impact towards the communities and the environment, but there's no place to find it. And essentially, this is the problem that Quantum Tempo really strives to solve with blockchain. And I will share some examples here. A little bit about our core products and initiatives. We've been pioneering a lot of different use cases that are, again, beyond the use of NFTs for digital art. So we use NFTs for loyalty and impact tracking for travelers through something that we call the Quantum Tempo Passport. We're also just recently launched the regenerative travel platform, where you can actually go and book experiences. So more on the utility use cases, where NFT are a ticket to an experience that you can do in the real world. And in our case, one that also ensures that the proceeds distribution is equitable and actually goes directly to the communities that are involved in the cultural guidance. We're also developing a protocol for cultural artifacts, which I think it might be very relevant and very exciting for museums, because this is a new way to guarantee provenance and authenticity to physical work. And in our case, also to enable what we call Web3 ethical commerce. I think the illicit traffic of cultural goods, it's still very real and something that needs to be addressed. And so we hope what we're doing is working with a lot of artists and craftsmen and introduce the technology at the beginning process, using also NFC, which is near field communication, the same technology that powers your phone when you want to pay with a Apple Pay credit card. And we're actually embedding those chips inside the physical objects to then get connected to the digital certificate of authenticity, which is the NFT, to then guarantee that authenticity and provenance and authorship for the craftsman, and then also the perpetual royalty stream as well. We're also doing use cases in digital collectibles and digital souvenirs, which we will address. And we also have an impact arm that is actually providing supporting mechanism, regenerative finance, for communities that actually want to revitalize their living traditions and culture, or also environmental projects that are as a result of intangible cultural heritage as well. And you can see here a little bit about, you know, the results that we've been able to drive over a short span of the last 8 months. And just a word here, you know, everything that we realize, everything that if you visit our site on Quantum Tempo is really developed and realized thanks to the local community partnerships that we've been developing and nurturing. Of course, we follow the UNESCO free, prior, and informed consent process. And we have actually pioneered a lot of the legal framework that had to be developed because none of this existed, being this a new technology. Where we've been in close consultations with WIPO and UNESCO to really, you know, figure out what is the most compliant way to actually do this through the blockchain technology, especially when it comes to like the living cultures. And you can see here a little bit about the distribution model and the benefit sharing that contributes to local communities and artists. I'll try to go a little bit fast here. So this was actually our first pilot. It's called Paths to Alango, which was the first digital art collection series, which featured and also archived living expressions of Balinese cultural heritage. We worked with Professor Steve Lansing, who's a renowned cultural anthropologist in Bali, who also participated in the UNESCO nomination of Jatiluhur Rice Terraces, and the government of Indonesia. You can see here the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy, to develop the collection that you can see briefly here, an 11 series, really representing some of the essence of Balinese cultural heritage, from the performing arts to living traditions to also you know, ceremonies, and also the Subak, which is also UNESCO World Heritage Site. And what was really important about this, it was that each and every digital artwork was sold through an auction mechanism that directly distributed the benefits of the sales proceeds to the digital wallet of those communities, which we will talk maybe a little bit about later how that worked. But it was such an important one to actually put the community at the center of this and provide the proceeds in a way that was transparent and trackable also for the donors and the philanthropists that supported. And this was used, you know, the proceeds were used to fund cultural transmission initiatives in Bali.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, please go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. No, I was just going to interrupt you only because we have an artist on WiseArt whose name is Indra Putra, and he's more of a musician than an artist. And what I find really interesting with all this fundraising through NFTs, maybe I should say NFT is just a digital title of ownership. It's an algorithm, for those who don't know, that enables you to collect images or pieces of music or anything really that can be tokenized. And so in this case, his name is Indra Putra. He's actually working very hard on the rainforest and reforesting. And he's tokenized pieces of music by Balinesian pop stars. He's also working on a show, like a musical with a lookalike or with a clone of John Lennon, he's an Argentinian man, and he's around now. Maybe you've heard about it. It's a musical that's going around Indonesia at the moment. So yeah, it's interesting to see how it's not just commercial, which is what a lot of people have criticized NFTs to be about, but it does do a lot of good to our society and the nature, and you know, trying to make a better world for future generations. So it's all very interesting, Linda. I'm fascinated.
Thank you. No, thank you so much for that. And ultimately, you know, this is the ultimate why of why we're doing this, you know, to ensure that our future is going to be multicultural, and there are new funding mechanisms for culture. I think one final thing I wanted to share is that certainly blockchain is still in its own infant stages. You know, for everyone here that maybe all of this is new, don't worry. This is all, you know, we're super early. The technology is super early. And also, I think oftentimes there's this idea of like, oh, are we using, you know, NFTs to attract this new, you know, target market and target audience, or are we, you know, using it in a different way? One thing that I wanted to share is that the technology is definitely evolving, and in our case, we're actually trying to demystify all of this to make it accessible to everyone, developing a digital infrastructure that can be used by my mother and my grandmother. In fact, we did pass their test. They both managed to get on board on our platform and start, interacting with the different initiatives that we have. And all of this is possible now. So as you can see here, this is, for example, how we're developing our experiences module, which, you can pay with your credit cards. When you can actually create a wallet using your email. So you don't have to worry about, learning about what is a wallet. How do I get set up? How do I deal with all the, technical difficulties? And I think that's very crucial, especially for also museum, to think about how do we make it easy so that everyone can really participate. Of course, it's going to interest the younger audiences, but at the same time, everyone can participate as well. And maybe a final word on something that we're doing incoming, this next month. So we're doing the first ever Web3 activation in a UNESCO World Heritage Site, where we're going to be activating a lot of modules of our infrastructure with the goal to onboard, educate, and engage the visitors that actually currently don't receive guidance in the World Heritage Site, but ultimately to also empower the local community members and the youth leaders to actually stay involved in the temple, because right now they're all going into hospitality jobs, and because there aren't the incentive for them to work at the temple. And so we're really empowering them as heritage storytellers to be guiding the travelers through the site. And this is a little bit about the activation. Maybe we can talk about it in more details later. But what's going to happen at the end is that the visitors will be able to collect also their digital souvenir as a proof of attendance and also memory of their visit. And then they can also participate in some of the impact projects that temple is specific and this community is leading. So what we say is living a legacy that stays. How do you develop a relationship that extends beyond the moment of the visit, right? So that the travelers, in our case, get a closer and more intimate experience of what it means to travel, in other words. And everything is tracked to the platform. So you can see here through the personalized dashboard a little bit about how that works and how can a traveler track their impact and also continue to stay engaged with the communities and culture that they want to support.
That's fantastic. And I think it's nice to point out as well that the technology is fairly new, and that all these collectibles, whether it's in a museum in Berlin or your touristy trip in Bali, there will all be collectibles one day because they'll be one of the firsts. I have a few questions. So before we move on to Martin, I'll just quickly go through the questions. One of them, thank you for joining us. It's Martha Ikabongo from Zambia. So she later on maybe we'll get into Africa if anybody has any experience with Africa, but she was asking if there was any such programs, and she always wishes to congratulate you, Linda, for the good work. Then we have Gab, who's asked, that will be for me, and I will be putting the answer in the Q&A box later on or in the chat box, but he was asking who was the musician, working with NFTs. There's actually several, so I'll give you the names because I'm afraid I don't remember them offhand. Their Balinesian names are quite long. So yeah, so we've got all these questions that are coming up. Thank you very much, guys, for joining. Martin, are you ready to join us too? Can you tell us who you are and what you're doing and why you're in this world, in this technology world?
Hey guys, so thanks for inviting us and organizing this event today. It's really exciting to share the vision of everyone. I think we have a lot of synergies with Quantum Temple and We Are Museum and the WAC Fellowship. And I thought, let me just quickly share my screen. I thought it would be best to just hop in and start sharing a little bit about myself. So as I will be speaking a lot about the metaverse, I thought, wouldn't it be a better way to introduce myself as an avatar with some characteristics and some passion, for example. So a little bit of background, I'm Dutch, born in the Netherlands, but I was raised in France, which allowed me to be fluent in English, French, and Dutch. and some other languages, which I can practice, but not fluently. If I would have to describe myself in 3 words, I would say I'm someone very creative, strategic, and innovative. So you will see a little bit more about that later in the presentation. And about 10 years ago is when my passion of history and art actually came to flourish. But before that, I was always a big passionate about technologies. I was always having the newest phone, the newest drone gadgets, name it. I was always experimenting with new technologies. And today I'm based in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. So where did my journey actually start in the cultural sector? It was about 7 years ago when I was working with Bean Moves, and Bean Moves is a brand that creates high quality products for museums. They sell in the Rijksmuseum, Kunstmuseum, the National Gallery today, some museums in Qatar, and everywhere around the world. And that's when my passion started to come for the whole cultural sector. I really liked, the creativity of the arts and putting in all this work into products. But I was lacking the technology. So that's why I created a digital creative studio where we initially just consult museum and try to explore together with them. First of all, educate them on what all technologies are out there. So there's blockchain, there's immersive tech, there is AR projects, there are AI nowadays. So there's so many technologies possible. And initially that's what we do. So we discovered these technologies together with them, and we start little pilots into creating some of these projects. Today we're really focusing on Roblox, Fortnite, and spatial. I think, like with the whole metaverse getting created, this is our focus point on right now. One of my favorite projects was for the Aquarium of Paris. The Aquarium of Paris is the oldest aquarium in the world. They opened in 1867 at the Trocadero next to the Eiffel Tower as the first public aquarium to open their doors. Fun fact, it was actually in the old caves where Napoleon used to hide his troops. So there's a little bit of history behind it, which I love. And initially what they wanted to do is, they're very known for their jellyverse. Sorry, now I'm saying jellyverse because I'm used to it, for their jellyfish collection. And initially what we wanted to do, we wanted to make a game that's accessible through the internet. So you can just go to the website, it will send you to spatial, and then you can try the game. You don't need to download anything. And it's very educative. So it's everything around the jellyfish. You will learn how old it is, where it swims, what it eats, the size, everything about the jellyfish. And besides that, we also did an NFT collection. And that NFT collection was based on like a loyalty program. So with this NFT, you get lifetime access to the aquarium. We know that this is a very local type of NFT, so it's maybe only interesting once you live in Paris because you can go there. But initially, we wanted to use that in order to create this community for the Jellyverse. Besides that, we have always been very good at 3D modeling, so we've done a bunch of NFTs that we have created, so some jellyfish, but also for other clients. Always been good in video animation, so basically that's where these worlds slowly started to eventually it was just evident for us that the metaverse is the next step. So we created a lot of different visual videos for clients, which then led for us to explore the metaverse platform. So we tried out a lot of different platforms, tried out the spatial when it was completely in the beginning, when you didn't have legs yet. So it was definitely a fun ride, and working with different types of clients, not always museums or cultural institutions. We tried also VR, but we see that today VR, like it's not as accessible as a device that's accessible to everyone. So that's why we also think that the metaverse right now, as it is of Roblox, Fortnite, and spatial, for example, is a little bit more accessible. But while working with all these, And also we did some projects with AI avatars. So this is quite new, since the whole AI space started booming, we thought like, how can we work with that? One historical project that we worked with was for the University of Erasmus in Rotterdam. And initially what we wanted to do is we wanted to bring Desiderius Erasmus Rotterdamus back to life. He was a philosopher from 600 years ago. And based on his paintings, we recreated him. And today you can basically interact with him. The idea is to bring this to the city so that tourists in the city could walk to a screen and ask anything around the history about the city, but also to find certain things within the city. Basically, we believe that every experience always has one main character or one mascot, basically. And for us, Rotterdam was obviously Desiderius. So this is actually what led to MetaZine. So as we were working with this museum, we figured out that there was a lot of things that didn't exist. So platform, they needed to somehow get ticketing in place because museums need some type of revenue, returns of income in order to survive eventually. There's also a lot of like things that were missing, like AI in there, which is now emerging a little bit, the quality and all these things. So basically, this is what brought to MetaZine. We thought instead of always helping clients, so museums, to build on third-party platforms, why not build one world where basically all the museums would come together? This was a vision that started in 2022, so 2 years ago. Obviously, that was a bit far-fetched. We thought, like tomorrow there's going to be 30,000 museums in the metaverse. You'll be able to travel from the Louvre to the Musée d'Orsay to somewhere in London to anywhere you want and explore these cultural sites. But it took a bit longer than that. So after doing a lot of fairs, such as MUTEC, Museum Connexion, and multiple other fairs, we decided to start building basically because we saw that there was a real demand, and we have now integrated the highest quality form of metaverse. So it's like pixel streaming, which allows you to have very high sharp resolution of experiences. We have a ticketing system in place. This is not our ticketing system. It's through a partner called Get Protocol, also sponsored by the Tezos Foundation. We are working to also integrate old projects. So basically, some museums have already explored VR experiences before, and we want to reuse those projects basically by updating them and using them in our system. We have an AI guide, so you can connect multiple AIs to personas. So it can be a guide, it can be Van Gogh that you bring back to life. It can be another visitor that's actually not a real visitor, but an AI visitor. So the AI can be a little bit anyone you want. And we have taught it to basically explore the space. So it knows exactly which painting is where, it knows exactly on how to show you the whole experience. This is a collaboration with NVIDIA and Convey, which allows us as well to do the pixel streaming. We have built a museum shop integration, so in order to generate more sales for the museum. And at the end of the experience, the tickets is actually, since the start, is an NFT. And at the end of the experience, if the user is willing to sign up for the newsletter and go into the database of the museum, then he receives a digital collectible. He receives a digital collectible to reward him from his experience, which is basically a collectible that he can then use probably in the future for future discounts or anything you want to connect to this NFT. Today we focus primarily on PCs, but there's also the possibility, of course, if the client really wants to bring it out on VR, it's just some tweaking and adaptation, and then we can launch it on there as well. So you have to imagine it has to be more than just a digital twin, right? So we see in a lot of experience today that creates an exact copy of the museum, and then you just walk around with the same paintings in the same space. The projects that we're working on today are more towards a story, like an actual story and something very immersive. So you would be possible, or we created the room of Van Gogh where you walk into, and even the sound is there, right? So when standing in the room of Van Gogh, you would hear the French cigale in the background. You would hear some birds. You would hear some sounds of the other people that were in the other rooms. So that really creates this immersive experience where you relive a moment or yeah, specific. It really depends what the museum wants, right? But we want that the experience is not just a digital twin. It has to be something more than that. It should be a spectacle. It should be almost as if you're part of a movie. I think what makes us different a little bit to others as well is that we have thought about how to distribute this. We know it's a digital experience, but most people go to the museum physically, right? And in order to bring that experience home with you as a souvenir or as a card to gift to a friend, we thought about making this like something you can purchase in the store. So basically, you can then home, you can completely be alone and immerse yourself again once more in this experience, or gift it to someone. It's extremely easy. It's just a website, a code. You sign up, you choose a time, or you wait in the waiting room, and then you start the experience. So even a grandmother or anyone could experience this, and this really makes it easier to distribute as well for a museum, because it was a very difficult model to distribute for a museum, because it becomes, how are we going to market it, how are we going to share it, how are we going to create this adoption? And so that's how we thought about this. We've also implemented very large or very high detailed avatars. And there's a quote that I used to always say from the movie Ready Player One. I don't know if you guys saw it, but in the Ready Player One movie, it says people come to the oasis for who they can be, but they stay for all the things they can be. So initially, what I want to say about this is the metaverse. Of course, you can create your own avatar. If you're a man and you want to have a woman avatar, that's fine. You can create your own specific identity and really put your creative thought in that. And I think that a lot of people could feel themselves maybe either more comfortable to walk around it or more proud of it. There's a lot of things that can come to mind here. So this was our glimpse of our vision from a few years ago. And initially, it's still the vision that we have today. So I thought I'll show you a short video that actually shows you our vision for in 10 years. So in 2032, we believe, that you will, sure, for now, the experience will be one and one. It will be one museum and then another museum and another museum. But there will come a moment where these museums will intersect and you will be able to travel from one museum to the other museum. Obviously, flying around, like, why not? Because you're in a metaverse, you don't have to be constrained to any gravitational aspect. And yeah, this is initially our vision. That's a museum, a building appears the moment you pass by, that you'll be able to travel to these different museum worlds, basically. Yeah, that's it about the presentation. And yeah, if you want to connect and talk more about the possibilities in the metaverse, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn.
Thanks, Martin. We will probably get back to a lot of this. We have a question for you already. It's from Eli Santos. It says, how do you think games like Roblox can innovate museum experiences? And does your company help to do that?
Yeah, so with MetaZeum, we specifically built a metaverse for museums, right? So if we look at Roblox, that would be more a project that we do with our agency. And our agency, I think the way to differentiate a museum experience from others is really looking into the story. So it's the same as what I said for MetaZeum. I think there's not enough people that focus on the story, actually. What's the story you want to convey to the user, and what do you want the user to experience? I think so museums could definitely explore Roblox experiences, We are working on a few of them actually as we speak. And it's very exciting but it's more a marketing purposes, for example. So if you really want to market your experience, or if you want to teach younger audiences specific things about what your museum offers today physically as well, then a Roblox experience is something you could explore.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think also the NFT concept in the gaming world has not really caught on that much. But on one hand, everything's going very fast, and on the other hand, it's true that with the Web3 and the meta, maybe it's because of the eyewear and special tools that you need. It's going a little bit slower than perhaps the rest of it all. I see that myself, so maybe I should explain a little bit for those who don't know Wise Art and WiseKey. WiseKey's been in cybersecurity for 25 years, and they've worked with more about protecting the human, the data collection about a human person. So they work with the United Nations, with the Vatican, with the Seychelles government. They've also created a little bit like Linda did, like a passport, which also collected all your medical insurance, your medical data, etc. I myself, I'm the director of Wise.art, which is a digital platform for artists. And we have as many phygital packages, which means the NFT is linked to a physical piece and it's sold as a package. Or now we have a lot, I'd say 50% is also digital, just digital art. And I'm finding with experience that digital artists who do start with the computer end up printing or somehow 3D printing their work anyway in a physical aspect. Maybe one of the questions I have about Web3, and we touched upon it very, very briefly, is either one of you, all three of you, can you see something that would stop you? Like, it's definitely the future, but what are the hindrances going to be? What do you think? Maybe Diane, with museums being traditional and all?
Well, to be honest, I think museums jumped on this Web3 wave way faster than others. Like for the first time, we saw museums experimenting with very emerging technology right at the start. We saw the British Museum, the Uffizi's, the Belvedere, like really traditional and centuries old institutions really trying something and experimenting with Web3 totally at the beginning at the beginning of this NFT time in 2021. I won't expand here if it was a good idea or not, but they've been experimenting and they've been jumping. So the fact that it's super innovative and emerging is not really frightening museums. And compared to what we saw at the beginning of Web 2, I was at the time a blogger trying to, really educate museums and explain them the benefits that they could get from it. And it took me such a long time, years. And still, some museums are still not, understanding. But Web3, I was super impressed. Like museums jumped on it, and we, for instance, for our training program, we are now in the season 3. We received we received a lot of applications, and we have 20 museums joining the program from all around the world. So I think, yeah, museums are still really, really curious. But I don't think I'm fully answering your question.
The technology, I think, still remains frightening, and what a lot of people said today, including Linda and Martin as well, is we've got to be more user friendly, I guess. It is a natural thing for the younger generations, but even then it's not that easy. So I think it's interesting as well to see that most workers in that industry are still looking at making it easy and easier every day. And of course, it'll get there. I was also interested, Linda, because you worked in Dubai. Obviously, they're very, very in advance. They've actually got a digital art fair. I just came out of Genève where there was 2 digital art pieces. So it's still a little bit slow on that end. But I think in the Middle East, they're really, really well ahead of us. And then now you go to Bali, which to me is, you know, rainforest and other than the beer drinking touristy people, there's more. It's more about nature and traditional customs, etc. So do you find the adaptation or adoption is easy?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and one that we get a lot. I think certainly the Middle East is very much forward and open to experiment with new ideas, and even with my engagement with the Dubai government, we were all about the future and not fearing that, but obviously putting the right processes in place and right panels to create ideas that would unlock value not only for the UAE, but also like looking, having the privilege to look at 50 and 100 years horizon, being, a more long-term leadership, right? And that's, I think one of the key benefits that they're able to like really implement. But I think, when it comes to other, emerging destinations and emerging markets, it's very different. When it comes to Indonesia specifically, is also his own unique ecosystem. I don't know if anyone here on the call, on the webinar is from Indonesia, but Indonesia is the largest digital economy in Southeast Asia, 270 million population, one of the youngest population in the world, with an average of like 20, I think it's about 26 right now. So very, very young and very, very fast, rapidly growing crypto adoption in general. So in terms of like a mainstream consciousness, like crypto as a concept was already there, and NFT being fungible tokens rather being a use case for crypto. In other words, blockchain being a use case for crypto was definitely known. So when we started, really thinking about how we were going to approach these problems and then developing those solutions, like first of all, there was a long engagement with the communities. It was first about really understanding what was their situation during the pandemic, before the pandemic, really getting to the core, and then working together to define what the solutions were. So it was a step by step. And then certainly the fact that Indonesia, again, has a very young population and crypto is known as a concept was definitely helping us to communicate and translate that actually crypto is just one manifestation of blockchain, but there's so many other things that are coming up and so many things that we can do that are also relevant for you. And so that was a beginning step. One anecdote that I always like to share is for example, when we worked with some of our the artisan communities, particularly in the east of Bali, a lot of them, we see the parents' generation still hopefully involved, but then the younger generations are not, right? Like they are on the path to go into a different job in a different career, and actually, de facto putting in danger the family traditions that is about to get lost. And we've seen this actually with the Genta, which is the ceremonial bell, which is our first physical artifacts that we're tokenizing with and archiving, and then also enabling this Web3 commerce module. And what was really cool in that instance and in community engagement process was that the kids suddenly that are still studying at university, they were the ones that also helped getting mom and dad set up on their first ever crypto wallet and helping them managing these apps and logins and access, and what that did not only was really cool to see, but actually what that did is that it actually put an idea in the mind of the kids that actually something was going to happen. Like suddenly culture is still relevant for us and it's going into the future because of this. And some of them it was definitely a long-term objective, but actually something that already happened is that in some instances, the kids decided to change their career goal. Some of them were going to study law and medicine, and they decided to switch curriculum, and now they're studying culture and tech because they believed that now there's a space in the future, and now they want to stay involved in the family legacy. So if there's a way, there's a will. And I think ultimately for Quantum Tempo is about making this accessible as for as many communities that are interested in preserving their living heritage and finding new funding mechanisms to take this into the future. So that has been at least our experience so far.
I think the bridging from 2 to 2.5 or 3 or however you want to call it is definitely happening organically. And I have an anecdote with Christie's and Sotheby's, who embraced the NFT market quite quickly, especially after the result of $69 million of people at the time. But they found that they thought they were going to attract a whole lot of new people to their environment, to their community. And in fact, it was the traditional buyers that were interested in the NFTs, and the new people that were coming as a younger generation started their collections with traditional physical artwork. So I don't think there's any way of predicting anything. Martin, how do you feel? Like I know you went to the aquarium in Paris, which is fantastic. I'm going to go there next time. Having lived in Australia, I'm very concerned with jellyfish because they kill you over there. So are you finding that the usage or the people are cold, or no, they're embracing it and you don't have to convince them that hard?
Well, I think actually there's something to come back on what you said earlier. I think same for metaverse, same for blockchain. People were looking at use cases. People were looking at, like, what are the returns, or it doesn't always have to be an economical return, but maybe a fame return, or there needs to be some type of what's the record, like, if I do an NFT project, what am I going to get from it? And because that it's all new, it's always very difficult to explain that to a museum, for example. And so they take baby steps, and I think it's normal. I think everyone would do that, right? I would not tell anyone, yes, you need to invest right now 300,000 euros into making something for the metaverse. I would definitely try with small little pilots and to see what works for you. I think everyone is open to it, but as I said, I think the difficult and the challenge is to show what does it bring to the museum, right? What values, what does it offer actually? And because this is still very new, that takes a lot of convincing, that takes a lot of working together with them. But that's what I like the most, like working together with the museum, exploring these things together, and co-creating something and a unique experience. And to come back on the jellyfish, that was actually one of the points, like most people see a jellyfish as this thing that can ruin your holidays.
Yeah.
But actually it's a fantastic animal, one of the oldest in the world actually, and that we have to thank, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But yeah, so that's a little bit what the project was about as well, like showing what is actually a jellyfish, because I think a lot of people don't really understand the jellyfish yet.
True, very true. But I think the educational side is also going to be one of the driving forces of all this technology. We
Can
have
I add to that, by the way? Because I think what's very interesting is that, like, why are metaverse projects and blockchain metaverses always mixed? Because like we call it's part of Web3. People might agree, some might disagree, but I think it had a lot to do with the fact that the metaverse was always like long there. I think in some kind of way, this type of online games, we will only have the real metaverse when you'll just enter one platform and travel to all these places, I think. Just like there's one internet, there's only one metaverse. What we have today is actually called, the right term would be more a meta space. But what really drives the attention to these digital worlds is like land sales. And so these land sales of Sandbox and Decentraland were done in the form of an NFT. Mm-hmm. And so this is where both worlds actually started to collide, and both technologies started to really evolve and becoming adopted by the people. So yeah, I think that's why often we talk about blockchain. We also sometimes talk about metaverses and digital experiences.
Absolutely. I think you're right. I had a discussion with somebody who worked as one of the first guys who conceived JavaScript. and he's also into the meta space and has created his own space called Vertical. But he also said one day in the future, there'll be as many meta spaces that people can access than there is websites today on the internet. So yeah, we have something to look forward to. I was going to go on with a question from Leticia. Thank you very much, Leticia. And it's what she says is that the true challenge is curation. And I think that's more geared towards Diane, maybe. She says the digital art and all the platforms coming and going are proliferating art creation and sales. It's tough as a curator to cut through the masses of art that's been created in such a short time. I know what she's talking about, and I tend to agree, but I think that's in all creation, whether it's the arts, the fine arts, the music. There's a lot of stuff that's created all the time that we really don't know about. But her question says, collectors are also looking for guidance. So what are your thoughts? And maybe I was going to move on to, I know you've spoken about the WAC handbooks, but perhaps you can elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, the WAG handbooks are not really for curators or collectors; they're for museums. But if I go back on the question, I fully agree with you, 16. The proliferation of artworks is something that we can see in so many different mediums, but definitely now they are more visible. So it's bringing you this kind of overwhelming feeling. But what we start to see, and that's going on for the past 2 years or year and a half, we start to see a lot of curators and curators actually guiding collectors, but also collectives of collectors. And that's something that is, sometimes really organized, just like if they are based, backed up by a DAO, backed up by by blockchain, they can become a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. So it's basically a collective of collectors or curators deciding to gather joint forces to collect or to exhibit or to organize an exhibition together. It's basically what we already see in the traditional art market when we see the clubs of collectors. Most of collectors, they have their friends of friends, and it's this kind of tiny bubbles that you actually work with and work in. In the Web3 space, it's exactly the same. There is just more because it's more visible. But yeah, more collectors are looking for guidance, and more curators are popping up and are also starting to have more major roles. For instance, we saw at the Paris Photo, we saw the curator Nina Hoers, actually based in Switzerland as well. She started to curate the digital art section for Paris Photo first time. These kind of people, exactly like Annika Meyer, for instance, in Berlin, with the Koenig Gallery and our Gallery Expanded, these people are really having a sense of art history, and they can really lead the discourse when it comes to identifying who will be the next artist to look at, and the ones who will really stay in the next step and in art history. So we have a few major icon. I would say in the Web3 space when it comes to curators, but we also have smallers, and as I said, we also have collectives. I shared a little bit before this website called Uncurated, and it's actually a curatorial platform focusing on African digital artists. These type of platforms are blooming for the past few months, and I could send you 20 to 40 links like that. And I think knowing them is definitely the hardest, but I would not advise people to try to know them all. Just look at your own bubble, your own network, exactly like you already do in the traditional art market. Thinking that you should know it all, it will be overwhelming anyways.
No, you're right. I think social media as well plays a big part. And there are groups on social media, if you type NFT or digital art collecting, or and there's more serious ones. I mean, you see it in the comments and the types of people who've joined the community. But And some seem to be a little bit more specialized, like Discord is one of them. But there's, even if you go on Instagram, you can find a lot of art, obviously, and a lot of, what could be considered good or bad. It doesn't matter. It's subjective, but it's you have to go with what you feel, and it's exactly as you say. In the traditional world, it's the same thing. But there's also historical. I think again in traditional collecting, you look at rarity, you look at whether it was innovative in its day, etc., etc. And right now, Switzerland's under this cloud of hype or buzz around a Swiss artist who invented 30 years ago a digital little artist who looks actually like Super Mario, and he's in his studio, and his name is Raoul Pictor, and he's 30 years old today, and or in 2023, 24, and all the museums who bought an installation 30 years ago are bringing them back out now because it's also the hype today. And 30 years ago, not that many people were interested, and now a lot more people are, and they're bringing out books, etc. So, and little Raoul Pictor is going to NFT Paris next week. He's going to Dubai the week after. I mean, it's the buzz is created, and I think you need to follow social media a little bit as well, because there's a lot of exchanges. Read the comments, be curious. I think that's probably an answer.
If I can add something else, museums are currently collecting. They are collecting a lot, and they are definitely showing the way. So to be able to create your own taste, you could look at these these figures, leaders, might it be museums or curators, and also look at your own bubble, and then you find the right recipe, I would say.
Also, to pick up on what Martin said earlier, the story is really important, because whether you work with a chisel, or whether you work with a paintbrush, or whether you work with your mouse, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's a story you have to tell. And I'm thinking about Rafik Anadol, who's like the big star now, and MoMA in New York got one of his pieces now permanently. But I think the story behind it, and Damien Hirst is another big storyteller in that respect, is that Rafik Anadol created his avalanche of color and paint coming down the wall with all the works, all the inventory of the MoMA. And a lot of people don't know that. But I mean, when you look at it, knowing the story, like for any conceptual art piece, it makes a lot more sense. And that's where I totally agree with Martin. The story is super important, especially today. And same with Linda, by the way, with all the in First Nations or indigenous artifacts that are coming up. I find it really cool that in Bali you're embracing and encouraging the younger generations to actually look at their ancestors. I've worked a lot with Aboriginal people in Australia, and well, the discourse is a little bit different because you need to be initiated to know the next step of your ancestry. So there's a whole insider protection system in place, which could be a little bit difficult to democratize and to make it global. So are you finding that with Balinesian traditional?
Well, I think what's interesting in this case is kind of what you were hinting at, using blockchain as a cultural archival mechanism that then enables because of its characteristics, it's publicly accessible forever to everyone, whether it's the cultural custodians directly of that particular traditions or anyone else in the world that wants to learn and understand a little bit about, in this case, let's say, Balinese cultural heritage. And so definitely, I think in Bali, like there's always been one of the key characteristics about, the community is that it has always been open to foreign encounters. We've seen it even in the 1930s when, great anthropologists and ethnomusicologists and writers have come here, and even as a result of the World Fair. And, Bali has always been open to share. And definitely, there's definitely a understanding that the homogenizing forces of globalization and commercialization, and also within the tourism sector, the idea of like commoditization of tourism itself with this phenomenon of like what we call Instagram tourism, right? Like there's literally, tour operator that sell tours where you can go see all the Instagram highlights of the island, right? Which is like, it really like I think takes soul out of travel, to say the least. And so there's, I think for the Balinese people and certainly the communities that we work here, is first and foremost being a desire to ensure that Balinese culture will continue to thrive as it still is, and will be, and those knowledge and those ideas will continue to be in the future. And there was also this idea of be part of this movement, right? Like, again, we're all pretty early in the space. Certainly, NFTs are started to be adopted mostly by those that have access to the technology and access to the market, because, creating a digital art and it's something that everyone can do, but we started to understand that then in order to be successful, there's so many other steps that needed to be made: storytelling, marketing, having the right context. There's so many things that are still relevant. And I think in our case specifically was more importantly the desire to also fundamentally change the perspective of the island, where tourism has definitely brought a lot of resources, but is also brought negative impacts with the environmental challenges and also this commoditization of culture that is happening. So we, through our collaboration, this is something that we're trying to change, to really like put culture and community and its own custodians at the center, and then enable them to be, in fact, we say they're, even in our own experiences, we're not doing tour guide, they're not tour guides, they're not doing tours, they are heritage storytellers. They're the living, custodians of these traditions and communicating that to the world, whether it's physical or it's digital or hybrid, and a mix of both. But that's ultimately what we want to inspire. And so, so that's a little bit about our experience.
It's also interesting when you said that you moved there during the pandemic, which was a great place to be, by the way. But that it did impact a lot on the economy. And so now we've got a next question, and I guess it goes to Martin, but it's or Diane as well. It's from the museum metaverse, what is the business model? So we're back down to commercials, and we need to be as well. Do the museums have to pay you? And if yes, do you have to go through competitive public procurement process? And if not, how are the payments made? And then he says, are they coming only from the metaverse users? So basically, what's your business model, Martin?
So, I mean, when we work with a museum, specifically the platform that we're building, right, MetaSeum, we have a setup fee. So, like creating the experience. And then we have like a license fee, which is basically allowing us to maintain it, to keep track of it and everything, and make little updates if necessary. And then we have a revenue sharing model. So because of the revenue sharing model, we are able to lower the prices by a lot compared to what others would ask. And on top of that, we are not only selling it to metaverse users, we're selling it to, I mean, sure, it becomes a metaverse user, but it's a physical person, right? A physical person buys one of those cards physically there at the location. We have thought about making those cards cheaper than if you would buy it online, because you already went to the museum, like you're already going there, so you're already spending money to visit the museum, and so it would only be a little additional. Today we're exploring prices. Physical, if you buy the card physically, it's around €5. So it's about the same price if you get an audio guide, or if you get, I've seen some people selling a specific book that you can buy with the experience. And online we ask a little bit more, because you don't go to the physical place, and it's for those who are further away, right? If you're in Brazil and you would like to explore one of the museums in France, for example, well, the price that it would take you to fly all the way over there and visit it's much higher, obviously, than doing the experience. So then we're looking at around 7.5. euros per user. And this is
Still a
then an
lot
experience.
cheaper than a flight from Brazil to Paris.
Yeah, exactly. And then this experience is about like 1.5 hour experience. Yet again, it really depends on the museum. If you want a shorter experience, then obviously those prices will change. If you want a longer, the price will change as well. So, but basically what makes this very competitive is the fact that we know it's going to sell, especially because of the physical aspect to it. And therefore we are allowed to, or we can allow ourselves to put our pricing down by a lot and have a very short setup fee implementation.
Sounds good. What about you, Diane? Your programs that you're working with, the coaching or the training, etc. Is it, first of all, is it all online? Can anyone apply who's in the industry, or you're more B2B? Yeah.
Totally online. It's for all cultural institutions. So, for instance, for this cohort, we have museums, private foundations, but also libraries. So it's quite large when you talk about the definition of cultural institutions, and it's really coming from everywhere. It's a free access program thanks to our partners who are covering on the coast. So we are really lucky to be able to provide such a program for free.
Yeah, we've also explored the idea here, and we're going to launch a Wise Art coin or a Wise coin. We don't know yet exactly what it's going to be called, but same to sort of have repeat custom visitation, etc., is to reward people. And I heard that you guys were also having reward systems, etc., for various museums. So I think it's along those lines. I think human beings like to belong to a club, and that always seems to work. Are you also entertaining the idea of being paid in crypto, or is that taking it a little bit too far? Any of you?
I mean, we are accepting. We're lucky that I looked for an accountant that knows on how to handle this. But so we have done projects before. Back in the NFT days when we were more on the NFT side, we have accepted payments over Ethereum. And initially, it's possible. I think most of the places it's possible. It's just a little bit more complex. But the moment of payments, like the moment you're paid, and that value is initially what you're taxed on. So then it doesn't become a lot of rocket science, but sure, it's a bit more complex. And especially if your accountant is someone that has been an accountant for 50 years, maybe, and is very much used to the old traditional way, then it becomes a bit more complex to explain these things. But it's definitely possible.
It's possible.
It's not something we see often, though.
Okay, well, we've got a question, and that also it's funny because everybody's sort of following, and I'm really glad because it sort of runs one into the other. But this is a question for Linda from Alex Trujillo. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Could you describe the process of registering cultural assets that you tokenize? Do you adhere to the specific metadata standards such as linked art or any other? Does that talk to you, Linda?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, we have a curatorial process, and I think someone in the chat also talked about the role of curators. And for us is also very, very important because, the question is, how do you decide and what to tokenize, what is deemed to be, intangible and tangible cultural heritage. So we work with curators that are, working in the cultural sectors, are either a historian, anthropologist, artists, and previous artists themselves, depending on the types of, again, cultural heritage expressions that we're intended to archive. And not only, obviously, we do follow the metadata standards, the classical one, that everyone used, but actually we extended that because in our first series, especially like let's say in the Passo Alango series, which was the digital art series featuring Balinese heritage, but also now for the tokenization of physical objects and artifacts, we are saving on in the metadata, not just like the brief, description, but rather like a very, very extensive curatorial description, the same way UNESCO asks each and every submitting countries and committee to evaluate whether any particular expression of heritage is then going to be, the same nomination process, rather. So all of that information that proves that expressions has outstanding cultural value, we actually have outlined clearly in the metadata, so that this actually adds way more substance and also cultural information and knowledge for anyone that is going to be, retrieving and engaging with these digital assets in the future. So especially when it's the digital art and the digital art forms, you want to enrich that, beyond the digital into, the more meaty curatorial statements, so that it will be all ready.
And that's already archives for future generations as well. Exactly. And also the training of AI. We mentioned briefly before that, of course, AI is emerging in all of this and developing extremely fast. But I think it needs to be harnessed as well and being taught, like Diane was saying as well. You teach, you prompt it, you give it the information that you want to retain with AI, right?
Yeah, and also we also thought about something that, hopefully we'll be able to implement in the next iteration is like, can each and individual asset become, extend cultural engagement, but also study and research, and how can that all link as well? So something I think that is definitely very relevant for museums, where then you're going to be able to trace and access the different research that is directly linked to perhaps those tangible or intangible expressions, something that right now is not very linear, right? You have to kind of triangulate, okay, what is available about, what is the available information about this particular, let's say, object or also intangible art, right? So those are things that we're aiming to interlink, and then that can also, generate new engagement, but also like new funding and utility model associated with it.
Yeah, obviously. Remember, Diana said, hold that thought. I think that takes us to next case study. Do you want to present the rest of your presentation?
Sure, I can just explain it. So basically the principle is to partner with some artists or galleries or curators or even collectors, but the goal is to set up an art auction. So artworks will be sold as NFTs, so artworks registered on the blockchain. And basically thinking that each time one artwork will be sold, multiple beneficiaries will be added to the smart contract. So it means that each time an artwork is sold on the blockchain, let's say for 100 euro, you can have 60% of this 100 euro sent to the artist, but you can have, let's say, 20% sent to the curator, and then 20% sent to a charity. Or a museum, or a community center, or whoever you want. But the principle is really to share the benefits through a smart contract. So it's fully automatized. And what is wonderful with blockchain mechanism is that, and especially NFTs, is that you can apply this royalty distribution process even on the secondary market. So that's really the royalty and the resales that are actually leading to this perpetual donation. So each time the NFT or the artwork is being sold again and again on the secondary market, every time the artist, the curator, and the charity will receive part of the benefits.
Thank you for raising that, because we hadn't raised it, and it's true that is a really novel way of working, at least for fine artists. Musicians have had it in the past, and actors as well, but it's true that for the art world, it's a new thing. So thank you for raising that. When is that going to happen? What's the timing on that?
So a few organizations already worked on it, and I think the most, actually tomorrow evening we are going to have a discussion exactly around this topic, and I can share the link after, but the regenerative NFT auctions that have been organized by a few partners, including Artblocks or FXH before, in partnership with a Giving Block, but led by Foteini Vallettoni and Alex Estoric from Right Click Save. These different projects really showed that it is possible to sell artworks and then keep receiving benefits. But the cultural institution that I mentioned 1 hour ago was the Institute for Sound and Music. So they are basically currently gathering a consortium of cultural institutions to organize this auction all together. Hopefully, well, it is planned to be live in a few months. And I think this will be really mind-blowing, because it will show a new model for a new source of revenues for cultural institutions, going away from the project-based funding system and away from the sponsorship funding system, but really trying to finally be independent financially to support the different long-term projects or even one-term projects, to support everything that cultural institutions want to support.
Yeah, and I think what's important as well in this NFT, not necessarily flipping, but the fact that it's on the secondary market and that there's a series of transactions, is that people need to communicate. And again, social media like Twitter is one of them, even though there's a lot of fake news on X, not Twitter, but it's true that artists tend to communicate saying, I've got a drop coming up, guys, and then you've got the different messages that will tell you D-1, etc. So many hours left. So that it's really it's quite an active sort of community in that respect, announcing the different things. So anybody interested in supporting a museum or whatever, I would definitely advise them to go and follow the social media page of those different entities. We have another question from Cynthia West. I have to say I know Cynthia, so welcome to the panel, to the webinar. Cynthia is the author of Spice Journeys, which is a book that leads that also is into the Web3 environment, and it includes animation. It also includes food and art. So the question from Cynthia is she would like to find out more about museums and metaverse projects in Scotland. Does anyone know anything about projects in Scotland? Nope. Okay.
Well, I heard about this fund ones that they did, but often the metaverse, like metaverse is such a broad word, because it's quite new, and like define what is metaverse. So often people, when there's VR projects, which I saw a couple of in Scotland, then people think, oh, that's also the metaverse. I cannot say it's wrong. I cannot say it's right. In my opinion, like metaverse is something accessible around the entire world. So if you have to be in VR on site at a museum in Scotland, in my opinion, that's not really a metaverse. That's more like a digital experience.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, it has to be something that's accessible around the whole world. And I think I heard some VR projects over there, but I didn't see any major museum or cultural institution launching something in this space. At least that's from a personal perspective.
Okay, well, that will answer the question. I know Damien Hirst is from North Yorkshire, so maybe he's got things going on there. We're sort of getting closer. We've got half an hour left. We'll leave the last 15 minutes to Eloise, but I usually like to close off by asking each of the panelists to tell us what they would tell the next generation. What would you tell a 15-year-old today to do in that space? So maybe I'll start with Martin, as you're big on my screen at the moment.
Well, actually, it's funny, and Linda mentioned it earlier. We also had an intern last year that was gonna study more just cultural law And then by working with us, she actually discovered, you know, this whole AI and these new technologies. So she dived into these new emerging technologies, still law, but so I think, you know, if you are a designer, a creator, or anyone that likes to be in the cultural space, we all know that these technologies are evolving, right? We all know this is going to be out there. So just start simply by exploring them. Try them out. Try, even if you think like, just try them out, and you'll have your own opinion. You'll have your own experience based on that. And I'm pretty sure that it can direct you towards maybe formulating an opinion saying, oh, they could have done this better, or they could have done this better. And then maybe that will lead you somehow to a path of discovering and creating something of your own.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. Stay curious. I also think that law is going to be important because right now governance is a little bit, regulation is a little bit blurry. And there's questions of intellectual property. There's all sorts of issues being raised. So continue studying law, I think, or start writing new law. Linda, what would you tell a 15-year-old today?
Well, I mean, I think it's actually from all of us to learn from them rather than us telling them what to do, because, you know, I think definitely the younger generations are even more digitally native than we are. And ultimately, everything that we're doing now is going to be also for them. So it's going to be used by them, right? So we're building de facto primarily for the new generations, right? And I think, you know, we talked about the accessibility of VR. I think we are experiencing now, about to experience a paradigm shift with the launch of the Vision Pro just a couple of days ago. Yeah. I think, you know, obviously it's still not accessible from a price point, but it's going to put pressure on every other hardware company to like realize a vision like that. And I'm sure within the next short amount of, you know, the next couple of years, we're going to see the proliferation of, I mean, finally, the beginning of the end of the smartphones, you know, that are also killing our necks for the last 10 years. And you know, this is the new way of operating. So I think all of designing this experience and are going to be way more natural, also for adoption. And I think also digital assets are going to be a natural part of our life and are going to make so much more sense now that these devices are going to come to the market than, you know, kind of seeing it in your screen, you know, in a 2D platform. So I think it's actually more for us to learn about the younger generation and like actually what they're going to do with it and what kind of experience they're going to demand in this new virtual world.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yesterday, there was Marion Cotillard. She's a French actress. She was just saying that she grew up with her siblings and the parents, right from a very early age, always trusted them. It wasn't a matter of telling them what to do. It was a matter of pushing them and loving them and encouraging them. But at the end of the day, trusting them in what they were doing. So, and I think that's a very good point. They're little human beings and you know, we can learn a lot more from them. That's very true. Diane, what is your advice to an adolescent today?
Well, first, I'm loving what I'm hearing here. It's full of benevolence and it feels very good. I think I will just say that, like, just be a creator. If you want to create, if you want to produce art, just do it. Don't be scared about not having the last tech access to the last AI, the last, you know, software or whatever. I was talking a lot with artists from the Philippines. Over there, illustration is really something, and they've been selling a lot of NFTs of their illustration. And then I've been talking a lot of artists coming from different countries in Africa, and the mobile phone is actually is the way they produce artworks, and it's totally fine. You know, we kept talking about these high-tech devices and everything, but it's, at the end of the day, it's just about art. It's just about your way to expressing yourself, and you can be part of this Web3 space and NFT space just with your phone or just with your pen, and then taking a picture from it. So yeah, don't be scared if you can't have access to all of these tech savvy stuff. They're just stuff. Your creativity is really at the core of everything.
Yeah, I think that's good advice as well. It comes from the heart, and you've got it or you don't, in all different ways.
And to add to what Linda said, you know, like we're gonna learn from the children, and you can actually see. I went looking for how many children are there on Earth today. It's roughly 2.2 billion under 18 years old, from which 2/3 does not have internet. So that's the thing that will still come, right? There's a lot of more children will have access at some point from internet. But if we can't take that into account, that means that 733 million children have internet connection. And we know that on Roblox alone, so this is one platform, there is 73 million users, from which half of that is also children. So that's basically, if I quickly calculated, I just quickly on the side calculated that, that's basically saying from all the children around the world who have access to internet, that roughly 5% are using Roblox. So every single day, which is crazy, right?
Incredible,
Like,
yeah.
which is, and that's every single day, and the average usage is around 1.5 to 2 hours. These kids are using more Roblox than YouTube or TikTok. Like most people think that everyone is on social media, but that's actually getting replaced by this new medium because it's much more engaging. And I personally think, you know, a lot of people say, yeah, but these games, it's not good for the kids and everything. But if you compare social media, where you just scroll and look at everyone's perfect life and like and follow other people, instead of jumping in a social world where you interact, where you speak, where you collect, where you learn, where you do so much more than just scrolling, I think these immersive platforms have much more value to bring than a social media platform.
Yeah, you're
Very
probably
excited to see where this will lead. Will we in one day not have some type of social media anymore, but more some type of social immersive profile? We will see.
probably. Well, now I find as well that it's funny because when I was a little girl, we used to, you know, my dad bought a TV at one stage or another. Can't remember how old I was. And we would go on a Saturday evening and watch the movie all together as a family. Now everybody's watching whatever they want to watch on their laptop or on their iPad or whatever it is. But there is interaction nonetheless because you can share your programs and your playlists and whatever. So it's happening. And I think it's happening in a good sense. I don't think we should be afraid of any of it.
So yeah, then I'm very curious how these immersive tools as well, you know, like besides the fact that there's platforms emerging, there's also tools emerging. So it's not only the software now, it's the hardware. So
of course,
like Linda said, maybe one day we will not be on our phones anymore and look. I mean, if you look in the metro, if you go into in Paris in a metro, it's very difficult to spot people that are not on their phone. Like most of the people are on their phone.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe at some point we will look up a bit more, and sure, it will be maybe more digital, but maybe it will somehow still make us more connect with someone who's in front of us, or add a little bit of, you know, I think there's going to be a lot of digital fashion as well. I think people are going to start, because a lot of people already wear a lot of simple clothes, you know, black, and nothing too extravagant. And maybe with these digital fashion, it will be you be able to have some extra wings or some extra things flying above your head or whatever. And a lot of people might think like, yeah, but we don't need that, and you know, it's not going to come to that. But initially, it's the younger generation that's gonna be here and take our places in 30 years, right? So if they want that to happen, then that will happen. So initially, that's that's my thought on that.
It's a good one. It's everything's going to move, and who can tell the future, right? Eloise, did you wanted to talk about the QR code and the NFT goodies at the end of the show? So I'll let you continue. But I would like to thank Women in Web3 Switzerland and Eloise and all our panelists for joining us today. I thought it was a very interesting conversation. I hope the audience enjoyed it as well. And and enjoyed the recording. We will share the link shortly.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, 16, and to all the panelists for your time today. We still have a couple of minutes, so while I talk a little bit, if anyone has a few last questions in the audience, please feel free to go ahead. We have a very nice message from Alex again in the chat, and by being here today, you're already ahead of the game, so to speak, because as we said, these technologies are still very new. So it's normal that it feels a little bit overwhelming sometimes, but the first step is to learn and to be curious. So thank you so much for being here today and listening to this conversation. Again, feel free to ask any questions if you have still in the chat. And if not, what we're going to do is I have a little technical issue, of course. So I'm talking a lot about tech today, but I cannot share my screen. But Anastasia has been kindly helping me in the background, so she can share her own screen with the QR code that will simulate, so to speak, what could be minting an NFT like. It's a very easy, actually, a very easy process. Again, so creating your first NFT. This kind of NFT are called NFT Pope as a proof of attendance protocol. So that's a way, for example, to use NFTs is to a digital proof of your participation to an event, which works for online events as well as physical events. And if you scan the QR code, Anastasia, you're welcome to share when you want that. It will allow you to be registered as someone who minted their NFT, and I will contact the first few people who've done it to see if you would be interested in a 20-minute conversation for free with one of the speaker of today. So yes, one speaker. If I'm not sure if I'm explaining properly, but one speaker per conversation, or it could be someone from your team, and so it's a chance to have a conversation within the following few days about what we talked today, and see if you have any more personal questions regarding your own museum, and see if that can help you move forward in the direction of Web3 opportunities. So I don't know if Anastasia is able to share her screen.
But initially, just to add to that, this is exactly, I think, how NFTs can be used. Besides, like you have NFTs like it's arts. That's one way to use it. It's linked to a specific art piece, or like a utility, like you're doing now, of like, hey, you have attended this event, so now you can scan it, you can get your NFT, and then from that you can get new things. And maybe in the future, we're talking about episode number 35 of this show. Then you will be able, with this NFT, to claim a specific T-shirt in collaboration with Rafik Anadol, and I don't know, you need this NFT to be able to unlock that. So I think this is where the technology of NFTs become very interesting, and then of course, like it's an NFT. Maybe you want to use it on a different wallet in the future or whatever, or you want to transfer it. It will always be transferable, so it's something that becomes more easy to trade with others, or maybe, who knows, we will start actually trading them, right? I'll give you one of this and then you give me one of that. Back at school, when we had the Pokemon cards.
But it does happen already now, and I have to say, when all this first began, and we had Tezos at the Art Basel show, whether in Basel or Miami, Tezos was handing out free NFTs just to get us to start a wallet on FXhash, etc. And the other day, now I've got many friends that are actually using FXhash or Logix, I think it's called, to upload and drop their art. And now I'm those free NFTs that I got in Basel 3 years ago, I've sold to buy more, etc., etc. So it's a real little marketplace. It's actually good fun, and it's not huge amounts of money either. I think it's accessible to anyone Of course, you can spend a lot of money, and a lot of people talk about NFTs, in the six figures, but it's very accessible to most people as well, which is nice.
And I could also add on top of that multiple museums already experimenting with that. The Haus der Kunst in Munich did something similar with the artist Sarah Friend last year. The Grand Palais Immersive did something for the Venice, and then the Musha exhibition. The next museum in Amsterdam did something similar 2 years ago. So that's definitely somewhere that museums, it's a direction that museums are exploring. And actually last week we had a discussion about, what could be 2024 for museums in Web3, and token-based membership system really came out like the use case that museums will really adopt in 2024. So let's see. But yeah, I'm really happy to see that we are having this discussion here today as well. It seems like a lot of synergies are going towards this direction.
Exactly. And we've got clients as well who are they're in the entertainment industry in America, and also the sports industry, and they're looking at doing NFT memberships for the NBA, for the NFL, etc. So it's definitely we're on the way. So that's a good thing. We went to Davos for the World Economic Forum a couple of months ago. That there's the World Economic Forum, which discusses all future more politics and society, but there's also a big digital or this new industry exhibition there. And we had a little, what they call an NFT ATM. And it's only yay big. It's like a meter high, 40 by 40, with a tablet on the top. And again, same, like you just typed your email. It created a wallet, and you could just get your little free Wise Art NFT, which, and we within a day, we minted 40 NFTs. So yeah, there's curiosity. But I think, again, what we said before, it needs to be user-friendly, and it needs to be a little bit more fun. And who knows where it'll take us in the future. I think medical as well, they'll all have their procedures and whatever on the blockchain one day. How are you going, Eloise? Did this work?
Thank you, 16. So it looks like Anastasia also has a small tech issue on her end and cannot share her screen. So I think we sent you the link by email, but of course you were busy moderating. So what I did is I just left my email for everyone in the chat as a response to the last comment from Ferica Giano. So instead, feel free to email me right after today's webinar if you would like to manifest your interest to go further and talk with one of the speakers of today. And of course, you can also contact them directly. I can always share their contact information. So my email will be az.heloise@gmail.com, and it's in the comments to the last message from Ferica Giano. So hopefully that helps. And thank you everyone for your time today. Thank you to all the participants who joined us. It was a pleasure to organize this event with you, 16.
My pleasure for having you all. And again, same thing. If you need to find anybody, any of the speakers or whatever, you can always come through wiseart.com and leave me a message there, wise.art.com. I think we have 7 minutes left. So anybody want to share something more?
Well, because we were talking about live minting and how you can, collect an NFT after your on-site experience at the museum, I'm advising everyone who is visiting Paris from next week to experiment the Agoria. The Agoria art installation. So it will be actually a kind of a multi-sensory installation. So with a big sculpture and your breath will generate an NFT. So it will be highly personalized and highly, on the moment. And you will collect this really unique asset coming from your visit. So yeah, I cannot share on the chat because there is no chat. But if you check Orsay and Agoria, it is called the Code d'Orsay. And I think, yeah, le Code d'Orsay, yeah, exactly. And this will be, I'm sure, a use case which will inspire a lot of museums.
Yeah, I should say it's probably part of the program because next week is NFT Paris, which is quite a big event, and they've got the DEEP Digital Art Fair in Paris as well next week. So there's going to be a lot of new technology around the city.
I think it's 2 weeks, no? It's not next week.
It's
around the 22nd.
Sorry, yes, you're right. 21st to the 25th of February. So if anyone's in Paris, let me know because I'll be there as well.
Nice. See you there then.
See you there, Diane, with great pleasure. All right, then. Well, I guess it's goodbyes.
Thank you, everyone.